Good morning and welcome to News Conference Extra, a special segment of Today in LA Weekend. I'm Conan Nolan. On Friday, federal court judge Michael Fitzgerald, an Obama appointee, tossed out a challenge to the constitutionality of the California recall election of Governor Gavin Newsom. Judge Fitzgerald saying the lawsuit tries to stop an election that's already begun, adding that the arguments do not give the federal judiciary the right to halt this mammoth undertaking of this gubernatorial recall election. Nevertheless, the ruling has been appealed to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, so it's still alive. The case was first given life as a result of an opinion piece in the New York Times and the Los Angeles Times by Erwin Chemerinsky, the dean of the UC Berkeley School of Law and the former dean of the UC Irvine School of Law. Dean Chemerinsky joins us from his home in Northern California. So the argument is that because Gavin Newsom needs a majority vote to retain his office, but his replacement on the second ballot only needs a plurality to take his job, that on its face, the recall process is fundamentally unfair. Do I have that right?
There's a real chance that if Gavin Newsom loses the recall, he'll still have 48 or 49% who want him to be governor. As of now, on the second vote, the challenger who's polling ahead has 18%. We could end up with someone favored by 18% rather than someone favored by 48 or 49%. That makes no sense. I also think it's unconstitutional.
So why does it violate the U.S. Constitution?
The Supreme Court has articulated the principle, one person, one vote. Every voter should have the same opportunity to influence the outcome of the election. If the candidate with 18% is chosen over the candidate favored by 48 or 49%, it's in essence that those voters have 3 times as much influence as those favor the candidate who lost.
You point out that Arnold Schwarzenegger received more votes than Gray Davis did in the 2003 recall, so there wasn't a problem with that recall. But you want to stop this election based not on an actual vote, but on polling surveys. Why not just wait and see what happens with this election instead of just trying to stop it?
One possibility would be for a court to wait until after the election and see what happens. But the difficulty with that, of course, is it's very difficult for a court to undo an election once it's occurred. The other possibility for the court to say that the very structure of this election is unconstitutional, and that therefore if Gavin Newsom loses the recall, let the lieutenant governor become the governor. If the governor leaves office for any reason, it's the lieutenant governor who takes over.
You've said one remedy is to allow Gavin Newsom to appear on the second ballot, allowing the governor to be his own replacement if he loses the first vote. Term limits for state and local office holders are constitutional. That's what this is. The voters have decided to limit the governor's term and replace him, and that his name can't end up on the second ballot for the same reason, for example, Jerry Brown couldn't seek another term in 2018. He is ineligible, and it's up to voters to select a new governor.
I don't think this is at all analogous to term limits. This is one election being held on September 14th, and there are 2 questions. Does Gavin Newsom stay in office, and if not, who replaces him? And for this election to determine as the governor of California, the candidate favored by the most people should be the governor.
So the election is underway. About 1 million votes have been cast. When has the federal court ever just said, no more election, we're getting rid of the ballots, and we're going to stop it? And is that a good idea for the judicial branch to end up in the political realm and start canceling elections?
Courts have to enforce the Constitution. Let's take the example of what was called malapportionment, where for a given state legislature, you had districts of vastly different population sizes. Initially, the Supreme Court said, well, we're not going to get involved. That's a political thicket. But then the Supreme Court in the early 1960s said, it violates one person, one vote in equal protection. And courts are going to make sure that all of the districts for a legislative body are about the same size. For far too long, courts refused to get involved in race discrimination in voting by saying, we don't want to be involved in elections. But thankfully, that's no longer the case, and courts will be involved. If there's a constitutional violation, it's the court's responsibility to remedy it.
So the recall was established in California in 1911. It was in the Los Angeles City Charter as early as 1902. Why challenge it now? You could have made this argument years ago, or at least when the petitions were sent out or when the recall election was set.
I wish I would have written it earlier. My colleague Aaron Edlin and I were in a conversation, and we were discussing this, and it was an outgrowth of that conversation. We said, we should write this up, and sent it off to the New York Times, and then wrote a piece for the Los Angeles Times. The only answer I can give you is we wrote it as soon as we thought of it.
So finally, this is a bit off topic, but the governor has told Democrats not to vote on the second question as to who should replace him. Leave it blank. Now, some might call that an effort at voter suppression. In your opinion, was that a wise strategy?
This is not a legal issue, but I very much disagree with the Newsom campaign. When you don't vote, you leave the choice to those who do vote. So if people who want Gavin Newsom don't vote, they're leaving the choice of the next governor entirely to those who want to replace Gavin Newsom. I've already sent my ballot in. I voted no on the recall, but I picked a candidate on the second ballot because if Newsom is recalled, I want to at least have the chance to cast my vote, so I think should be governor.
Erwin Chemerinsky, the Dean of Bolt Law School at the University of California, Berkeley. Thanks for taking the time. Next time you're in LA, we'd love to have you visit in person.
I'd like that so much. Thank you.
NBC4's news conference at 9 o'clock is preempted again this week by NBC Sports. We will be back with that program on September 12th. Meet the Press is at the top of the hour. I'm Conan Nolan. Have a great Sunday.